We got to talk some Tennessee recruiting because it's time for the annual 865 Live Memorial Day Visit Weekend in Knoxville. It's going to have some talent in it. We got Matt Ray here from VolQuest. Matt, who are some of the headliners Tennessee fans can expect on campus this weekend?
Yeah, Josh, this is one of those weekends for Tennessee that has been really important over the last few recruiting cycles. So you kind of keep an eye out through the week to see who might show up. But right now, early on here in the week, defensive side of the football looking really good for the Vols. Reported earlier today that Braden Rouse, four-star linebacker out of Kell High School, is expected to be back in Knoxville this weekend. That's a really important visit as he's going to have one of the more intense recruitments of the summer once it gets to official visit season. So Tennessee continuing to put their best foot forward there. Uh, you know, Top in-state athlete Joel Wyatt expected back to campus. Another guy that, if you've really followed the recruiting scene for the last few months here over the winter, you knew when this one got to this point, it was going to be a fast-paced recruitment and shaping up to be a busy June for him. So Tennessee's going to get him back to campus this weekend and then have him back on campus again for his official visit weekend, the second weekend of June there around June 6th. So those two guys are two big names that Tennessee's set to get to campus.
Yeah.
Tennessee would like to get guys like Tristan Givens up here. Some in-state guys like Craig Tutt and Zayden Anderson. Jamie and Theodore down at Baylor is a guy whose stock is on the rise. Tennessee will get him to campus this weekend, and that's another visit to pay attention to, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this Joel Wyatt recruitment's really been heating up. Where do you think Tennessee stands heading into this weekend in his recruitment?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting recruitment. When Joel White was back out here in March, he told us at the time Tennessee was right there in the top two. I actually came back, maybe a day or two later and wrote about it in a VolQuest Recruiting 321. Who is the other team for Joel White was kind of my question, and one of the two questions there. And I think that that's probably emerged as Vanderbilt. I think they've become a real threat in this recruitment for Joel White, but I also think LSU's a very intriguing school to pay attention to. And then obviously he's set to currently take an official visit to Georgia. So it's a very interesting dynamic of those four schools. You don't rule out Kirby Smart's program. I think LSU definitely interesting, but right now it feels like an in-state battle between the Vols and Vanderbilt. And I think Tennessee's very much in this recruitment, but it's going to be one that, again, if you followed it through the winter, that there's been a lot of unknowns in this recruitment in terms of where does Joel White fit in at, and that varies based on which program you're looking at. Is he a guy that plays both sides of the ball? Is he a guy that plays offense? Is he a guy that plays defense? It's going to be a very fast-paced June for him, in my opinion. So for Tennessee to get him back this weekend, have some more of those conversations, remind him of the comfort level that he's had in Knoxville for some time now, that's big, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're talking about the number 3 ranked athlete in the country, so we're going to keep tabs on that one as he's on campus this weekend. This is, somewhat early for the visit cycle. I mean, it really heats up as we get into June, and then later into June it gets red hot. But so it's not uncommon for teams to bring some guys on campus early that they want to take a big swing at. Maybe, they're out on the outside looking in. So who's somebody that's coming in this weekend that you think, man, Tennessee has some ground to make up on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, Tennessee's been hopeful to get Amari Latimer to campus this weekend. We'll see if that happens. They've worked to get him to campus a few times over the last couple of months, as have several other programs. He's just not been on a lot of visits so far. I think Tennessee's very much in that recruitment, but I think they do have some ground to make up there. So if you can get him to campus this weekend, and as you said, really lay that out and take a nice swing at him, I think that would be big as you're planning to get him back on campus in June for an official visit. So that's one guy to me that I will be watching to see if he makes it in and kind of see what he has to say coming out of this weekend. It would be important for Tennessee to get him back here.
All right. So this weekend sets up for the bigger recruiting weekends. And typically, some of these guys that come to 865 Live, they don't maybe commit that weekend, but there's plenty of them that end up signing with Tennessee. So who's a name or two that you would put in that category?
Yeah, that's this weekend has been a really good weekend to Tennessee historically. It's not a instant reaction type commitment weekend, but getting those guys here and then getting them back on campus in June has really paid dividends for the Vols. And I think you look at some of these guys that are in state currently, Brody Smith, Zayden Anderson, Jamie and Theodore at Baylor. Mentioned him earlier. He's a guy that's recruitment's really on the rise, and I think Tennessee's really turned the heat up there. I talked to him last week, ahead of this upcoming visit, and he's feeling like he's a priority. He picked up an offer from Ole Miss today. So Tennessee, going to continue to recruit him really hard. But I think that group of in-state guys, we'll see if Zach Groves is back in town this weekend. But I think Tennessee's done a really good job of recruiting in-state guys. And when they get those in-state guys to events like this, being able to capitalize on it. So it's kind of hard to bet against some of those guys at the end of the day.
All right. Well, you did a great job of setting the table for 865 Live in Knoxville this weekend. We're going to have plenty of coverage after the weekend. Matt Ray from VolQuest, thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.